صبحية.
صباح
نعم.
الخير.
يا صباح النور، يا صباح النور.
So Huda Asfour from Brooklyn, and I'm calling from Beirut, which you know very well because you've lived here.
I didn't actually live in Beirut. So I was born in Alais. My parents were in Beirut in 82, 81, 82. That's where they met. And they got married. And I was born يعني, a month after Sabra and Shatila, if you can believe that. So it was very tough times, the Israeli invasion. So my mom gave birth in Alais because my grandfather was staying there temporarily. And then, she'd have to go to Beirut, often. And then a month or so later, we left to Syria, actually, where I lived for 2 years. But most of my childhood was in Tunis until the age of 14. So I've been to Beirut a few times, and it was very special to be in Beirut the first time because, as a Palestinian, I don't get a visa. It was a thing, to be in Beirut the first time. Yeah.
It was a big deal. And where was your family from in Palestine originally?
My mom's side of the family, both my grandparents on my mom's side are from Akka in the northern side of Palestine. And my father is from Gaza. So, both Mediterranean cities,
Yeah, so
the north and
there's
the
a lot
south of the Mediterranean.
lots of history that you carry with you, and also you've lived in so many different places.
I did. Yeah. I mean, a Palestinian exile journey.
Definitely. And how are you feeling at the moment with the tragedy that's unfolding?
يعني, like, عارفة بالعربي بيسي يعني شر البلية ما يضحك. I'm like, it's so absurd. You have to make fun of the situation. It's like, this is unbelievable. Yani, my brain is unable to wrap, around the reality and the absurdity and the ease that with which, yani, Netanyahu is lying, and people are supporting. It's just like, you feel like you live in a time in history. It's like there are no words. There are no words to describe this moment. I think it's a visceral reaction that we've gotten to a point of injustice that بنقول نطق الحجر احنا هيك يعني انا هلا يعني بهذا المحل انه نطقت الحجر يعني. um, I don't know, how one gets over this, but to change the world radically. And that's my only hope, is that I know deep in my heart that there's a faith that we will change this world, because it's such an unsustainable system and it's been dying for years. And I think this is just the last part of the death. They're gonna fight back like hard. They're gonna fight with so much viciousness and ruthlessness. I have no doubt about that. It's gonna be really difficult times, but I do believe that we will emerge out of this much more beautiful. And this planet deserves that. We deserve that. And we have to rethink our whole existence on this planet fundamentally, like rethink the basics of how we live. So I live with that faith. I live with that hope every day. I try to stay, on the path of fighting against injustices, wherever I find them in my way. It's not just about Palestine. I always say it's not just about Palestine. Palestine is an icon. It's it's like a manifestation of all the ugliness that exists in this world. But the ugliness is everywhere, and it's been around. For me, I keep saying that the homelessness in the US and what's happening in Gaza are 100% connected. And we have to see these interconnections, and we have to start fighting for the well-being of us all of us, no exceptions, no exceptions.
Yes, there's a lot of violence and so much pain for you personally at the moment. And how do you sort of channel these feelings through music, through your work as a composer, but also as a cultural organizer and educator?
For me right now, it's about looking for like it's about predicting what are the needs in the coming phases in terms of my community work and my educational uh projects. I'm trying to figure out how we can intervene with models that can actually help in this moment, solve a crisis, not only in Egypt and Gaza, but also like the whole educational system needs a little bit of shift. So I have, some visions and dreams about creating hybrid systems where we can be online, guiding people, but helping them with project-based learning to actually achieve their ideas. I think people can be very creative and imaginative if we give them room for that. And people don't learn if they're not invested in doing something that is meaningful to them. So I really truly believe in the project-based learning need right now, to kind of allow for the creativity, unleash imagination, and truly solve social problems that we have around, and that I think the young generation has so much to contribute to in this regard, that maybe even the older generations may not have enough imagination right now to actually be able to see. So we really need to open up space for that. And then in terms of music, I've been writing music, for the last 3 months, thankfully. Before that, I went through all the phases, like the October 7th happened, extreme anger. I saw sort of like, in a way, like we all saw the future. In a way, we all saw Gaza being bulldozed in one way or another. 3 days later, I heard from my family in Abasan that they left, that the houses are mostly demolished. There was no coming back in a way. Uh, you follow all the cases here and there. It's like, you're plugged into with friends and family and people from everywhere. Oh, you're watching the world, move on, like as if as if it's just like a a passing situation. Lots of denial, and then there was the dissociation phase of taking a break for the nervous system to actually recover instead of breaking down. And then I came back with the music, so that's always a blessing. I'm really grateful that I have this outlet to shout my heart out in these songs, because yani, what the hell, yani, it's like the logic is falling. My mind is melting, my brain is melting. It makes no sense, and it doesn't look like it's gonna make sense anytime soon either. So changing times, falling empire, fascists all over the world in control of the most powerful intelligence, most powerful tools technologically, most powerful technology really to control and oppress. So hoping that, still we can figure out how to overcome this. And I do believe that we will kill them with beauty. Yani, it's really the only way forward.
Inshallah. So the music is therapeutic for you, and you're able to sort of work with through your rage, through
Oh,
your
absolutely.
anger. But your music doesn't sound very angry to me. It's actually the least angry music I'm listening to in terms of what's coming out of the region. There's something very sort of meditative about it, I find.
Yeah, I'm trying, yani, it's like, you have to channel your anger. That's what they say. Yani, I had to go through a lot of therapy to get to a place where, and I'm not very well in control of that anger, but I do believe that, my way through the pain is through meditation. I mean, that's how I function, honestly. Breathing is my way, like to release. Um, I think I'm trying to lean into sarcasm this in this phase of my life. So maybe like, another way to sort of channel that sort of anger and the absurdity of the moment. Um, yeah, I think maybe there's more sadness and also than anger necessarily in the music sometimes that comes through. Um but yeah, I mean, if that's how it's landing for me, that's really beautiful, actually. I really
The
love that.
first time I saw you play, it was really beautiful. It was in a garden, and you were singing love songs.
Yeah.
right?
Last year, yeah.
So
That last year or the year before,
maybe two
something like that.
summers ago. Yeah,
Two
two
summers
summers.
ago, yeah. Yeah.
And so that was my first impression. So it was the
Okay.
mood and your voice, very, very sort of minimal and really stunning. So maybe we could start there. Maybe you could tell me
Yeah.
how you wrote these love songs and, do you write the lyrics first? How does the composition sort of evolve for you?
Mm. So it depends on the song. Each song has its own character, really, like, and its own birth story in a way. So usually when I write the lyrics, come first with an initial type melody that, a rhythmic, structure, something that like holds the whole idea together. Um, so let's see. I think love songs, I mean, at some point I was like, maybe I don't want to write love songs anymore, but really, like, it's a blessing to keep falling in love and to have your heart open up this way and to feel these things that, inspire love songs. I'm going through like something similar now, and it's really beautiful, like to see how much capacity we still have in these hearts that are struggling so much right now. Um, so I don't know. Sometimes I see, like, for example, with Sutfa, I saw the poem of Fadwa Tuqan, and Fadwa Tuqan is known to be a revolutionary singer, I mean, poet. And most of the stuff I read was very much political in a way or another, right? Like, forward politics, telling stories about her life in Nablus and during the first Intifada. But then I read this poem that she had dedicated. Uh, I'm blanking on the name of the poet now, but Italian poet she met, like, during the Nobel Prize uh, meeting, and they danced this beautiful dance, and she's describing the scene and these beautiful lines, and I'm like, wow, yani, I wouldn't have thought of Fadwa Tuqan this way at all. So it moved me, and I felt like I want to reproduce that cinematic, grandiose, like, images she has in the poem. So I started working on that with a classical taste, a classical music sort of chamber, sound. So that was kind of, the direction, the thing. And then I added a little bit of, Latin vibe, like for the dancing, just, for the spice, and you go back to the drama. So, but that's what the lyrics are, right? Like, I'm just following what the words are telling me. Um, in my songs, it's usually personal stories that inspire the lyrics. Sometimes they're poems. Like, I have a song also that was written by my grandfather called Lastu Shaya. He wrote for my grandmother during the birth of my sister, actually in Tunis. He had this habit of going away to the beach because it connected him with Akka. So he disappears, and then while writing these two lines, basically at the end of this, he's in the middle of writing this poem, and two lines in, he gets a call that my grandmother's brother has passed away. So he basically packs his stuff and goes back. And I find the lines to be so sweet. يعني عرفت الآن أنك مقلتي وأنك إن بعدت لست شيئا، أنت الخل وأنت رفيق عمري وأنت القلب لي ما دمت حيا. يعني it's such like sweet, uh, you know. Um, but otherwise, the other songs are always, an endeavor, They take a lot of drafting. I work a lot on structure. And I like to deconstruct my work a lot. So, I could build something, leave it for a few months, come back, completely take out the whole thing, reshuffle it in a new way. And that's why things take time, like it's like there are 7 years between my albums, and there's another 7 years between the last album and what's coming next. So it's just that's how I work. I'm changing things now. I'm trying to share some of the process with people so that it's not completely dark for 7 years. But yeah, in terms of songwriting, that's how I work. And otherwise, community projects and music for me are always interconnected. So, there's also that space of bringing community together and making music and creating experience rather than a product like we do with albums and songs.
Yeah, and you grew up in a very musical family, right? And then you had also classical training, so you know
Yeah.
very extremely well the Arabic musical and poetic tradition. And then you moved to improvisation and experimentation. So you sort of, I don't like that word, but you sort of master all of these
Mastered, I
traditions.
don't know if I've mastered anything, like يعني إنه 7 صنايع يعني عرفتي بس والبخت ضايع بس إنه لا البخت مش ضايع إن شاء الله بس إنه
You
yeah,
studied, you studied.
I'm like a kid. I'm like a kid. I'm really a very curious kid that loves to experiment with all the tools that like excite me at the moment. So I went to see a workshop. I've always loved improv. It's been part of my, like musical journey for sure. I loved improvising with people. I have many recordings of early improvisations. But then in 2019, I met Anthony Coleman during a workshop, and it just changed everything I knew about music making because it gave me sign language to communicate to improvisers as a composer. And that was very, very special for me. And it put me on a journey of curiosity towards what improvisation is, what kind of tools and things we do, like, use for that, how it intersects with other aspects of our being socially and politically, and in terms of psychology as well, intersections with expression and listening and deep listening and hearing ourselves. So that started a whole new chapter, of workshops that I was leading, focused mostly also on introducing Arabic aesthetics, which I call basically, I find that there are two elements. One we focused on so much in the world, which is the tonality of Arabic music, but there's also the rhythmicity of Arabic music, which is very much tied to the language that we speak. So inspired by a book by my mentor Khaled Gibran, called بحور لأذان العرب. Oh no, wait, that's not what it's called. أذان لبحور العرب. Uh, and basically, it was like an eye opener to the richness of that world. And I started making connections with teaching exercises and tools that people can use to understand a little bit more, or at least the basics about the tafa'il, which is basically the rhythmic structure of the language in Arabic, and to connect it with the rhythms and the way we think about melody all around the Arab world. So beyond the tonality of the melody itself, like that rhythmic structure that is behind that. And then I met, amazing people along the way. Something led to the other. And then I got to meet Valentina Siniglio, who's coming from Napoli and is part of an orchestra that does conducted improvisation. So we led a workshop together in Cairo and then in Alexandria, followed by 2 concerts in each city. And it was the birth of the Cairo Improv Orchestra, which was like such a life-changing experience for me, honestly. Both workshops, I learned so much about musicality, about what it means to create music, about experience with the audience and how that can make the concept of a concert completely different in a way. And to see the beauty of all these conductors come on stage one after the other, each one showing their own personality with completely different sounds coming from the same instrumentalists. It's all improvised, all on the spot. Nothing is really like planned. And that led to the start of the Brooklyn Improv Orchestra here, which has been also a blessing in the city. Beautiful community of people who come together, and so much joy in these times. So despite all the pain, it just like keeps your heart, a little bit hopeful that maybe we can survive together. despite all of it.
And early on, what were your musical influences? What were you listening to at home in your family? And also, who were your first inspiration musically? The people you
Mm.
really sort of listened to obsessively or poetically as well.
Yeah, Sabrine, Camila Gibran for sure. يعني she shaped the childhood phase for sure. Sabrine was something that played in our house all the time. And Rahbani brothers and Ziad later. Also, Rahbani, it was really the musicals that was so fascinating for me. I would sit in front of the TV watching those VHS, tapes on repeat. Like the theater, the music, the orchestra. It's like everything was like, what? Um, but I would say even things like Dored Laham was important, in my childhood musically. It was like, part of your. And then there was the Malouf in Tunis. Um, my mom was such a great listener, so I really got to listen to everything as a kid. Like she would go from like, classical all the way to really old Iraqi folk. مقام عراقي, ملوف تونسي. And then as I started getting older and getting more into the oud, it was really someone like Anwar Ibrahim has given me a new perspective on the instrument, I think. He had such sensibility for the colors of the instrument. And it just like, was like a new window into what this instrument is capable of. Mm, I think that's pretty like, those are like and then, oh, of course, Asabji, Zakaria Ahmad, admittedly, I didn't like Kulthum until I was a teenager. Like Kulthum came later in my life. When I discovered the early recordings from the 30s and the 40s, I started falling in love with her. The 60s and 70s were odd for me as a kid. I was watching, not really understanding this ecstasy that people were expressing. And it seemed like people were dissociating somehow. I didn't like it. Like, I was like, this is something is wrong there. I'm not sure what it is, but I don't like it. But then the later recordings, especially her work with Asabji and Zakaria, yeah, I have a special, so they have special place in my heart. And طبعا, without doubt, Said Darwish. يعني, it's like another category in music, I think, thinking, not just making. Yeah. So I would say these, I hope I didn't forget any like major, I'm sure I did, but like these are like really.
And this ecstasy that you talk about, are you into it now? I mean, was it just too much for the time, or do you feel you talked about love songs at the beginning? I mean, we are very sort of romantic people, and we're very dramatic, romantic people.
Yeah, I think it's hard as a kid to understand, this kind of it's just like I think it makes sense that a kid wouldn't really necessarily understand that kind of situation. Now I understand it. I still have, lots of commentary on the politics of that, um, and how it has been used. But I do understand its significance a lot. Like, of course, يعني كمان like the musical appreciation is so different, as an adult, you're in awe of what like she's capable of producing. Yeah, it's
So
unbelievable.
you know that Edward Said hated Kulthum when he went to her concert as a kid. He was really shocked, and he thought she sounded like she was screaming or having convulsions. That she was, um, which is so interesting because it sounded very dissonant to him. Because as you know, he loved Western classical music, and it makes me think a lot about sort of the excess that comes through her voice. The excess of emotion, the excess of passion, of desire, of and I want to hear your commentary. Actually, this is the place to share it. Your commentary about the
I mean,
because we
yeah,
forget the political context sometimes when we listen, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot to look into as far as how these iconic musicians became sort of also part of the propaganda of the government at the time. And we like to idealize people in the Arab world. So, Kulthum is Kulthum, untouchable. خلاص. No criticism is possible for anything that she could have done. And I think that's unhealthy. It's just unhealthy. We're all human and we need to be called on our shit because there's a lot of shit that needs to be called on. So this idea, that we either idealize or we cancel people, يعني عرفتي كيف? It's just like too much of an extreme.
Yalla, this is gonna go viral. We're gonna call Kulthum on her shit. Live from
يعني,
Brooklyn.
I mean, we can at least look at history with a little bit of objectivity, you know what I mean?
Yalla, go for it.
لا إنه there's a lot to look at in the propaganda of the 60s and 70s يعني and even the 50s. يعني the environment is so complex, in terms of the importance of that work, the importance of, having that kind of positioning against tyranny and against, an imperial like power. But there was also, fascism on the ground. People were being mistreated, people were being put in prison, were being, driven out of their homes. Said Al Ali caused so much pain to people, and we don't talk about that. Like we talk about these things as if they're like national, and regional achievements, and we don't look at the environmental impact of something like that, or what it does to people's lives. There is a whole area, you know, that has been affected there in Nuba, and the history is very painful. So yeah, I mean, we have to think about, like, who dropped out of that scene in the time. Why did we lose people completely from the scene and allowed for the rise of these superstars, which became like pyramids, untouchable, truly untouchable. So yeah, I mean, this is the time to go back and revisit history in a different way, I think.
Yeah, and so interesting. And it's part of keeping the culture alive, not to keep it sort of, as we mentioned it before, and sort of fossilized in a museum, but to revive these traditions that you mentioned of improvisation that are inherent to maqam and the classical Arabic tradition, to revive poetic traditions of the spiritual traditions of the voice, and also to have these dialogues about what history means, what culture means to us, in the region, and also throughout exile, throughout exilic journeys, because you
Yeah,
know your life is a real example of, sort of various perspectives in exile, from Lebanon to Tunis to
right.
America, and really thinking about what it means to be Palestinian,
Mm.
right?
Yeah, I don't know. It means so many things for different people, really. But at this point, I think feel like we're the شو بيسموه الشوكة
The
uh
fork.
the fork in their like necks, like it's like we remind them, of their ugliness, I think. It's such a resilient existence, and really, really powerful. Yani the people in Gaza are showing us, mercy of a different kind. I don't know, like people are still, ugh, it's so hard. Like we saw people, over 9, 10 months now go through hell. Um, and they're still like, making cakes. Yani it's like, wow, wow. Um, I don't know. I think we're not divided from the people in the region. يعني عرفت كيف إنه it's also part of our history يعني in the region, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Sudan, يعني in Egypt. The people are what it means to be a Palestinian. Wallahi, I don't know, ya Shireen. It's just like, you know, for me, maybe it's a reminder that we're all human. It really doesn't matter where you come from. We need to really get to that point where we see each other as human. And to also, like, I say this thing about supremacy. I think humans think of themselves as supreme generally. It's not just supremacy between us in ethnicities. It's also about the supremacy of us thinking that as humans, we get to put animals in captivity. We get to treat the earth the way we do. We exploit and exploit and exploit and exploit resources as if they belong to us, and they really don't. They really don't. So I don't know. For me, this is the message. I want us to start seeing ourselves this way. And but my experience is so different from someone who's been in Gaza all their life, you know? So it's also the diversity of the Palestinian that is really, really intriguing.
When you said that they're still making cakes, that's how I feel about you making this incredible music and these times, that you're still, making your music with so much love and sharing it, with so much love. And how do you feel that this music can touch people and also connect us to our humanity, to this humanity that really we're losing because we live in such a dehumanizing
Yeah.
world, at every level. And as a scientist, that technology also has a huge role to play in this sort of,
Well, music is technology too.
yes,
It is a type of technology, I think.
yes.
And I think for me, it's kind of a reminder to breathe. When people breathe, they become so powerful. So if I get to a point where I can allow someone to breathe for a few seconds, yeah, I mean, that's all I can hope for.
Yeah, it's a reminder of our own body, of our own capacity to sort of respond through
Yeah,
our senses.
yeah.
It's very visceral, as you said earlier, right? It's a visceral.
It's the most visceral technology we have right now.
Music is the most visceral.
At least it's accessible, easy, you know, like it could be like powerful. Could be powerful. Yeah.
That's so interesting. So you think about that a lot.
So yeah, I mean, I've kind of had to rethink everything in the last few years. In 2019, I got to a position, you know, mentally where I had to make a decision to leave so that I can, you know, not lose my mind. I left academia to do music full time, be more of a freelancer. And since, you know, a lot, you think about a lot, and also these the experience of improvisation and, you know, leading workshops and learning about the intersections of psychology and improv is really incredible. Like it changed me a lot. um so yeah, I think about, like, I think also I've been studying a lot how people respond to music. What is it that make people sort of move? How, you know, like, what is it that makes me move? What are the things that we can't, like, whether you like the song or you can't, or you don't like the song, you'll move, you know? It's that kind of visceral, you know, impact that I was curious about. um I'm also curious about how people consume music, what kind of, you know, trends are there. Not because I care about that necessarily, but I'm curious about how what people are, um what is resonating, I think, with people is what I'm trying to say. And also I'm very curious about creating experiences that people don't have usually. Yeah, I mean, it's like this kind of situation where you go in and you leave feeling different, you know?
It
Really,
changes you.
really yeah. Changes you is maybe يعني عرفتي too much بس إنه يعني at least you feel different. I'll say يعني at least you'll feel هيك عرفتي إنه sense of relief mirroring happened something يعني عرفتي إنه
I mean, it
yeah.
changed me, I think, when I saw you play those songs in the garden. I think it was so different from what I was used to, I guess.
Mm.
Everything about the way you play, yeah, your presence, the lyrics, the melody, everything. So I think we can change each other.
يعني one hopes that's how we function in this world يعني we can at least influence each other يعني not change but at least influence each other
And
yeah
your voice is something that really, touched me a lot. And I wanted to ask you about the voice itself and how you think about the voice and how, your voice, you talk about breathing a lot and how, singing helps you, how you improvise also through your voice, and and the power that it has, in your opinion.
mm. It's so funny because I really never I don't think of myself as a singer like singing is like a thing I have to do in a way, right? Because I just don't have better options, يعني right now, or I didn't find the people who can sing my songs in a way that feels, satisfactory or فيش اللي قلبي على رأينا يعني. بس yeah, it's funny because I grew up around such great singers. My aunts, my mom, everyone in the family like had beautiful voices. عرفتي؟ فأنا إنه يعني not really the kind يعني عرفتي كيف؟ إنه شوي بيجي هيك دفش الغنى. Um, but I don't know, like when I started working on the first album, I really felt like I wanted to sing those songs. I tried to see if there were other possibilities, and there were not really. So that's how it started slowly. And then in 2019, actually after Kony, after releasing Kony, I took a total break of singing. Like I only started singing again last summer. I had made the decision to just like detach from that world, figure out why it doesn't. I didn't like it. I just like listened to myself and I didn't like it. I'm like, there's something here that I need to work on and I don't like it. So took a break for like 4 years or something, and came back now mostly because I felt the need to like let go of those feelings that I was holding, and needed to reflect a little bit more about the state of the world as is. And it felt actually so nice to learn how to use the voice. I took a workshop also to learn how to use my voice and my body. So it was like a movement and voice type workshop. And it helped me unleash a lot of my, like the things that were holding me back in terms of expression. And I think when that happened, I started sort of finding release in singing instead of tension and worry, and like a lot of thinking. And now for me, it's just like an expression tool, really. I really still don't think of myself as a singer. Um, you know, I told you, I'm just like a kid. I just like go with the flow, yani. Whatever my heart takes me in terms of curiosity, I delve. And then, and we see what happens.
And now you're into looping a lot, which I really love. And I wanted to
Yeah.
ask you about looping, what it does, the idea of, the cyclical idea, and then rhythm.
Yeah, it started with the pandemic, reflecting on a state of stuckness. I mean, honestly, like I, I found the tool, I really loved it, started, playing with it. But then beyond that, it can be very boring, right? I mean, you can get to a point where like all your songs and structures kind of feel the same, look the same. So I started really thinking about what is the concept of a loop and what is repetition. What is it when do we lose our sense of the repetition? When does it become hypnotic? When does it become annoying? And I really started playing on these concepts. Like I started experimenting with loops that were so annoying, like you'd wanna like يعني عرفتي تقطعي شعرك يعني it's like please stop this now. Two, like, loops that were so hypnotic you didn't want the track to end, like, or just like keep it going. And then it was coupled with my desire to really treat my anxiety of having to deal with like big band management after Kuni. Uh, it was like a lot of work to produce the album, took many years, and we had like 13 musicians on the album. So, touring or that was like impossible, يعني انسي الموضوع. And just like I realized that I was like burnt out from, like all the academic work and, the music work. So I'm like, I want to do something easy on my system. So, well, I started soloing because I really needed that break personally on stage. I wanted to be the only person responsible for anything. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have to worry about anyone else. إنه خلص بس أنا يعني. So it became like less load. And because I was on that improv journey, sort of taking a break from scoring and taking break from like composing and writing songs, it was so nice for me to sort of experiment in between these two realms into like that visceral space and the improv space, where you just delve into the moment and you go with the flow. And at the same time, it allowed me to experiment with all these concepts that I was like curious about. So that's how the wire started. And since then, and really after the genocide started, I thought that it was necessary for me to start singing some of my songs again. So I adapted some of them within the show to kind of allow for the experience that I have gained over the last few years improvising to sort of feed into this new space where I basically improvise my own songs every time, so I don't have to worry about structure. But it just flows depending on the show. Every time it sounds so different.
That's I love that. And then you're also using your instrument as the percussive. You're using it to sort of tap and
Yeah,
which was beautiful. And I love all the sounds that sort of come out of, you know,
it can be
just one
wild, this
instrument.
instrument. Yeah, yeah, it's really wild, the oud. Yeah, it has
Tell
so
me why
much.
you love the Oud so much and how you sort of connect with the Oud throughout, history.
So the oud has a history in the family because my grandfather on my mom's side played the oud, and I discovered actually from his diaries that he learned it because of his sister, who used to be a school teacher. And with one of her first, paychecks, she went and got the oud for the house. So not only he picks up the oud because of that, but he discovers also that his father was oud player as well. So when the oud shows up in the house, his father starts playing as well. So the whole family, like so. Uh, my mom's aunt, her brother, yani my grandfather, and his father are all oud players. I was playing keys, piano, and guitar as a kid mostly, and singing. And then at the age of maybe 12 or running on 13, we moved to. I saw my grandfather for the first time play the instrument in a like it was our first family reunion. I've never seen him with all his kids before like that. So they were sitting and everyone was singing, and they're like a trained choir. So I was blown away, and also I was blown away by how excited everyone else was sitting. They were listening and singing together. People were dancing. It was like a thing. Yeah, it's not just oud. Yeah, the instrument is a sort of it allows for something beyond that, like a community connected in a sense, right? So actually, that's what really, really drove me to the instrument. And I went back to Tunis at the time and basically connected with my music teacher. And I told him, like the oud, whatever. So we started the conservatoire journey, and that was that. And obsessive. Yani the instrument is so personal. Also, I've been playing it since I was 13. So, it's really like يعني almost 30 years now, this instrument has been part of my life. So it's really something.
I feel like it's part of you when you play, it's part of you, part of your
Eh,
like your body. It's like an extension.
يعني I do feel that way sometimes. Yeah. I can't, deny that. 30 years is a long time.
It is a long time. So you know what my project is about, right?
Yes.
So it's about this idea that, there's a sort of aesthetic of resistance that comes out of, dissonant artists in the region. And that's rooted in sort of a history of feminist and queer intellectual and cultural production.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to ask you about dissonance, if you like the
Mm-hmm.
word or not, because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people have opinions about this word. And the word, it is a Western word actually, and dissonance, cognitive dissonance. It doesn't need to be sort of technically musical
Right.
only.
Mm-mm.
And also this idea of, do you see yourself coming out of this tradition of, resistance? I know that you have more sort of inclusive ideas about how you work and how you create harmony and how you sort of create cross-cultural and sort of you kind of bring people together is your perspective. But I do feel that there's a rebellion in your work, so I would like
Absolutely.
to hear about that.
لا ما فيش هو every aspect of me is a rebellion. انت يعني مش فاهمي انا it's like I grew up like unable to understand the logic of society truly يعني like to put it very very simply. um I grew up in a household that was politics for يعني my parents were involved in the politics firsthand. Very much socialist upbringing. um Palestine is a symbol of injustice. Everything becomes part of that, even religion, like religion becomes, about these people who are fighting for justice. It's not really about like the God and the fear, it's about justice. And it's about like, finding a mode of operation for us as human beings where we can accept each other and be okay. Um, so it's like I don't know another existence. Like for me, it's like there is no other point in life than to fight for justice. Like I wasn't raised to care about myself necessarily. I was raised to care about others. So my care for myself comes from a capacity to serve others. You know what I mean? So in that sense, it defines everything. And then you clash with society لأنه إنه you grew up in a space that allows you to think critically, to say your opinion without filters, to be gender unbound. But your achievements have nothing to do with gender. That's how I grew up. So there was nothing I had to do as a woman or didn't have to do as a woman. So there was a lot of liberation in the upbringing. But then you face the ugliness of the political situation, and like you understand, oh, I can't really like see my family because I don't have the visa that I need. I can't really move. Like all the political, impositions that make your life a little bit harder. Um, so yeah, everything becomes, sort of a confrontation with social values that absolutely make no sense to me. And they are found for me, in ignorance and prejudice. People like to judge each other instead of be curious about them and ask questions to understand what people's positions are. But instead, we like to, blame someone for our own misery. So, خلاص, it's حفل. Yeah, it's a party. Everyone, is taking some sort of a stake in the matter. Yeah. In that sense, yeah, everything is a rebellion for me. And so there is no sense in this world. Why? How can you not be rebellious? Yeah, nothing really makes sense. على رأيي. I love this quote by Suad al-Amiri. Nothing makes sense. Why should I? Why should I? فأنا in this phase, I am like in the phase of nothing makes sense, and I'm not gonna make sense either. تخرب يعني.
I love that. Uh, I'm still looking at, structures of domination, even if we were able to grow up in families where we were relatively free, we still live in patriarchal societies. Um, the domination, the occupier, the Zionist occupier is a very patriarchal, force as well. Capitalism is gendered. And also the music industry is very, very patriarchal and misogynistic. And if you look at a lot of the women in the public eye, there's a lot of pressure on them to sort of perform in certain ways. And this is why I started this project, because so many artists were rebelling against that.
Come on.
So I was wondering if you had any thoughts about, sort of moving within these structures, that are inherently violent and working through them as well.
Okay, so if I had to reflect on my journey, and I would say you be radically free. Like that's the only thing you can do. You can be like you can't be anything but yourself. So you have to fight all the things within you that are preventing you from being fully yourself and fully free. And it's about finding that space of desire. People think sometimes that this is, like more of an individualistic position. I really don't think so, because really my responsibilities are really, really, really completely soaked in my desires. Like, my desire is to see a more free and more just world, and as such, all my responsibilities are stemming from that position. Um, there's nothing else one can do. I think that's the best you can do.
And do you feel that things are changing with all these protest movements and all these also, gender liberation movements around us that are also part of the protest movements? I mean, when you see the student protests for Palestine, they're also feminist movements, queer movements, ecological movements. They're all connected, as you said. Are you are
There-
you feeling that change is coming?
I'm feeling like waves. I'm feeling waves. I'm seeing the beauty in it, and I have a lot of admiration for the work that's being done, but I am also seeing a lot of judgment, and I am also seeing a lot of people who are not really willing to see how murky the waters are when you are in war. And I am seeing people judging other people for other ways of fighting. I'm seeing people, jeopardizing other people's work because they don't agree with it. So it's not yani pink and fluffy and yani, oh yeah, let's celebrate this movement. No, there are things that we need to really look at very, very, very critically and call our shit yani out. Yani, we have to call ourselves on the shit that's happening instead of pretending, oh wow, what a beautiful movement. No, it's not enough. Not only it's not enough, it's fucking toxic. What people are doing is toxic, and we have to really think about this. Not everyone that's shouting Free Palestine wants us to be free. There are people shouting Free Palestine and they're oppressing women. There are people shouting Free Palestine and oppressing other Palestinians who don't agree with Hamas. There are people who are shouting Free Palestine and not willing to actually call the PA on the shit that is happening. There are people calling Free Palestine, but, in their own life are so hypocritical. It's disgusting. So you want to free Palestine? Free yourself. That's really where everyone should be focused. And please don't judge other people for the work they're doing. You can be critical, but don't judge. Talk, don't cancel, don't stab. Go actually have conversations, difficult conversations, uncomfortable conversations. But I'm seeing a lot of stabbing. I'm seeing a lot of uh, unhealthy behavior. I am seeing lots of people pretending to be something they're not. So I have a lot of admiration for those who are really doing the hard work and putting their selves on the line for us all. But I am just saying, let's just not over celebrate a moment that really needs a lot of reflection and critical thinking.
Yeah, Palestine is the world, as a lot, have said. Palestine reflects our, you know, desire for liberation, but also all the challenges that come, on the way
100%.
to. And you're right. And I feel that in the movement, these tensions, these, um, the challenges that come up in movement are also generated by systemic injustice and repression, you know, by the fact that so many artists are censored within institutions, that so many people are losing their jobs as professors, as artists, as musicians, even models. We just witnessed what happened to Bella Hadid, you know, and so there's really so much violence that becomes sort of a language that um, almost the only language that we know. And that's why your language, you know, your language of tenderness is really so is really so beautiful and really does make, you know, make a difference. But it has to be this conscious effort to not give in, as you said, to this violence that I think we're being sort of
And to check in our own, you know, triggers and trauma. Like it's so important right now to do this work. Yani, I know
yeah.
as someone who's been there, yani, I'm not talking because, you know, like I've like, you know, I'm better than anyone else. Like I'm talking because I did all these mistakes and I still make them. You know what I mean? But it's really a call to be brave a little bit about how we see ourselves in this moment and how we can really you know, face the things that we play a role in. You know, I like the saying. James Baldwin has something along the lines of nothing can be not everything that can is faced is changed, but nothing can be changed unless it's faced. And you know, this is the moment. Really, this is the moment for that. On level, every level. The personal first, and from the personal comes a lot of collective, I think. That's how I believe.
Yeah, it's a moment of truth and a real
Yeah,
moment of revolution, but
100%.
also a moment of extreme repression, of extreme fascism that is really, you know, not only killing so many people and destroying nature and all of that, but also around us, artists are really struggling. You know, artists are not working, artists are not supported by institutions. You know, institutions are really crushing a lot of artists who speak up, and it's become, you know, incredibly difficult work to speak the truth, to teach history as it is, to, you know, speak the truth as an artist. And so it's even harder to overcome, you know, these barriers and to speak again, to speak the truth. It's a world of lies that we're in right now, a web of lies. I mean, Netanyahu yesterday, you know, was allowed to speak.
Yeah. I mean, يعني Netanyahu yesterday, you know, no. I just released like فشة قلب song today يعني على السجن مش على الكابيتول يعني حطوا النتن بالسجن. It's
Yalla.
like صعبة يعني عرفتي صعبة في محلات إنه there are places in history where like you can't like you know deal with the audacity of the political system. You know what I mean? And this is
It's
one
so
of them.
arrogant.
It's
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 very
just one
arrogant.
of them. It's just another one of them. Well, honestly, Shireen, يعني, I know that people are acting as if this is new, but is it really new? Yani, this is a country that is responsible for the only like two bombs that were ever dropped on a population, nuclear bombs, I'm talking. Yani, people don't face this history like in the US. They don't like this history. So they pretend as if it didn't happen somehow. So I feel like we all saw this coming. We're all seeing this system. We have to detach from the current system, think about new systems, build alternatives so that we can survive. But if you're still attached to the system, you're gonna suffer, I think, a lot. So the only way is to detach. يعني أنا هلأ يعني عرفت بالنسبة إلي الدروشة هي الحل يعني فاهمة؟ بس إنه I don't expect people to do that, but I expect people to start thinking about alternatives that are going to be good for us, good for them, and allow us to not depend on the system anymore.
Yeah, it's a
I
lot of
think,
people are talking about divestment, and it is, I mean, America is a country that's founded on genocide and slavery and the slave
yeah,
trade.
yeah,
Founded.
it's the only, yeah, exactly. And like, you know, you go back to the 1400s, in late 1400s, we're talking about the fall of the, you know, the Umayyad Empire, like, you know, fall, يعني, immediately after, يعني, you go on a mission and like people start being massacred for the name of the new empire rising. And here we are, the empire is falling now. And I think the more So I always say you can't ask people to divest if you're not giving them alternatives. So divestment alone is not enough. We have to keep bringing alternatives, especially for artists. You can't expect me to boycott the only available resource, there. You can't, if there are no alternatives, how are we supposed to survive, right? So it's really about each one of us figuring out what kind of alternatives they're willing to, and what we can sacrifice and what we can't anymore. But it's gonna be tough. It's a tough fight. They're everywhere. They have so much power, and they have so many enablers in power, which is really where the key is. So if we can't do alternatives, maybe we can change the people who are running these institutions.
But at least to be talking, I feel that we need to be talking so much about action right now, and that's where the conversations are going. And to be having these conversations, this is also where we're moving our thinking, along with the music, along with the art, along with the community and the poetry, to really talk about alternative, about actions, about organizing.
Hmm. يعني yeah, well, I mean, I think there is a need for also in like a bit of a medium term and long term planning, although it's hard to because it's very difficult to imagine how things are changing every day. But they're ready on the other side. They're so ready. Like you read Project 2025, whether Trump is in office or not, these people are ready. They're ready on every level. They even have an academy to get people, ready for the governing. You're fighting against people who have the resources to do so much. So we have to be so creative and imaginative in how we fight back. I don't have I don't have solutions, I just know that what we've been doing is not working. That I know for sure. So we have to think about new ways, whatever that means. And for me, my personal solution was to go inward. I don't know. Inward as in like be well enough to be able to fight the long term. That's what I mean by inward, not dissociate, because it can be reinterpreted in different ways.
It's really overwhelming.
Aywa.
I think I would love to continue this conversation. I think there's so much to plot
Sure.
together.
Sure, sure.
Uh, for today, thank you so much for your insights, for being so open. I learned a lot. And I can't wait for everyone to hear all this incredible music you're working on and you're sharing, because you went inward, but you're also creating so much beauty for everyone else to experience. So thank you.
Thank you.
And yalla, we will work together very, very soon.
I hope so too.
And you take care. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.